Hello everyone, my name is Nitsu and I'm back with another Digimon video. So today I'm going to be doing a set review, and this time it is going to be of the new up-and-coming set, EX05 Animal Colosseum. So exactly what is EX5? Well, EX5 is about beast-related Digimon. These Digimon have animalistic traits or qualities in terms of the theme behind the set. As far as what the set actually is doing, it's doing, well, mostly the same as what your usual EX set is trying to do at this point, which is have a couple of new self-contained decks for an easy access to start with, so that way if you're a new player, you don't need to invest in anything outside of the set to be able to have a deck to play with others. Then there are going to be a couple of upgrades in terms of putting new tools into some current and existing decks. The set also is introducing the new Fortitude mechanic, as well as continuing the trend on using Ace Digimon, and we do have to keep in mind that EX sets are smaller than BT sets, so they're going to have fewer individual cards, and pull rates are going to be slightly different. And because of this, it is going to be easier to get most of the cards, especially the lower rarity cards like the rares and below. So as far as the overall set breakdown, well, it is going to release on January 19th of 2024. There's going to be 74 different types of cards, and 20 of those cards are going to have alt arts. Some even have more than one alt art in the case of Metal Gurumon X Antibody. Then it's going to be your normal booster box size, so a booster box is going to contain 12 packs, and a pack is going to contain 12 cards. Then when it comes to the rarity breakdown, we have 22 commons, 20 uncommons, 18 rares, 12 supers, and 2 secret rares. A box will usually contain an average of 6 SRs and 3 hits, with the hits usually being 2 alt arts, and that third hit is going to be either a third alt art or a secret rare, and that's usually about a 50-50 chance on which one you'll see in that third hit slot. Then the set is also going to be coming with some extra goodies to add to the overall value and perception of the set. So outside of our usual box topper, which is just going to have foiled Digitamas, we get 2 additional box toppers. So one of the box toppers is going to be the limited card set version 2, and the other one is going to be the 3rd anniversary update pack, which both of these have some really important and powerful promos to help not only just with adding a couple of new generic tools into the game, but be able to help some specific decks as well. So these cards will be expensive if BT 14's 3rd anniversary survey box topper pack is anything to go by, just because they're only going to have 1 card per pack. Then with the EX5, we do have some new decks to, well, talk about, because there are going to be some new decks forming out of the set. Whether it's going to actually utilize cards only from the set or outside cards, that's to be determined by the individual deck. Usually, you're only going to need some minimal upgrades when it comes to this, and you could at least build each of these decks with inside of the set, but obviously it's better to take some cards from outside the set to be able to enhance what the deck is potentially doing. So as far as the brand new decks coming out in EX5, we have Fang Longmon and his Merry Band of Divas, Grace Novamon, a Crisscross DNA deck. This is their 3rd attempt at that. Then we have the Green Leomon deck, or Green Fortitude. Then we also have Leviamon, a purple control deck, and Anubismon, a purple combo deck. Then as far as the decks that EX5 is updating, it's going to be updating Metal Gurumon, Leopardmon, Edamon, which is also known as the Poop deck, and Yellow Vaccines. We do have to talk about the elephant in the room before we get into some of the more specific stuff inside of the set. So we do have to acknowledge that some of the cards are straight up banned and limited. They're not hit just yet, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to be later. So we already know that on March 1st, Anubismon, Garurumon X, and Gabumon X are going to be limited to 1. So this will slightly impact the value of the set, but I don't think it'll impact it that much, considering Anubis is the highest rarity and he's at an SR. It will probably end up killing his deck, but that's okay because Anubismon is just such a powerful card in of itself, along with Garurumon and Gabu X being abused by more than just what was in Garurumon, which is part of the reason why these cards are getting hit, is because they are just too strong. Then, on top of that, we do have our first choice ban. We don't have an English release date as of right now for when this is going to take in effect, so just keep that in mind that Sayo and Ko is going to be banned and not allowed to be played with either Zubamon, Keenan, or Matt because it creates an unfun loop that tries to skip the opponent's turn altogether. So, with all that said and done, let's just dive right into some of the new stuff that the set is going to hold, starting with the Fortitude mechanic. So, Fortitude is a new ability that states that when this Digimon is deleted, while it has a Digivolution source underneath it, we get to be able to replay that card for free. So this is really good because it's basically just a new form of protection that's trying to keep your Digimon around while also utilizing on play abilities to be able to capitalize and maximize on what that Digimon is doing, or just having really good on delete abilities to be able to pair up with that Digimon. And then one other thing to note is that Fortitude seems to be only in green as of right now, outside of, the whole two-colorness of it. But regardless, it seems mostly to be played with the Garudamon and the Leomon base cards. Then we have Grace Nova. So as I already mentioned before, Grace Nova is a DNA deck. The whole idea is you want to build two stacks simultaneously to line up into a powerful DNA play. The big DNA Digimon is going to be Grace Novamon. Then the whole gimmick this time, just because each time they're trying to reinvent how they're trying to do this whole crisscross DNA, is just utilizing and manipulating your sources to be able to line up your two Mega Digimon. Next on the docket, we have Fanglongmon. So Fanglongmon is a really interesting deck because it's trying to do something very similar to what Royal Knights was doing, where we're just trying to play out our big bodies, more specifically our divas and our sovereigns. So you also have the ace versions of the four sovereigns, so that way you could either hard play them for cheap or digivolve into them either normally or utilizing the ace mechanic with Blast Digivolution off of the diva that's already going to be on the field. And the gimmick behind the divas is the fact that they're going to line up another Digimon in your raising area, putting another diva in so you can at least utilize your raising area to be able to try to spawn multiple bodies as quickly as you possibly can while they're all cycling through themselves. So this just creates a gameplay loop where if the opponent isn't able to deal with the divas, then the sovereigns are going to be a huge threat because of the ace mechanic, on top of the fact that the faster you churn through your deck, the easier it is to be able to utilize Fanglongmon in all of the different ways that we could utilize him, either digivolving on top of our level 6s or just using the option to be able to play him out. Then when it comes to some of the other decks, they're not necessarily the most convoluted decks compared to the previous two, just because there's less emphasis on the other decks. So we do have Anubismon and Leviamon. These are both purple discard-based decks. Anubismon wants to try to swarm the field, and Leviamon wants to try to control and manipulate the current field state. Next, we have Metal Garurumon X. So basically, we get a whole new Metal Garurumon X antibody line that is going to be replacing the old X antibody line until Garurumon and Gabumon X get limited to 1. Then we're just going to basically play the one-ofs and swap back to the BT9 counterparts. But essentially, what this new iteration of the deck is trying to do is actually start drawing and discarding a little bit more proactively, on top of having a new X antibody card that we could potentially think about utilizing. Then when it comes to Edamon, well, Edamon is just basically getting some new control tools and some better consistency in terms of trying to update the deck. And same thing with Yellow Vaccines, except Yellow Vaccines being super versatile because tribes and traits are usually more expansive than archetypes. And this time, Yellow Vaccine is actually trying to support what Kentarosmon was trying to do, where we're trying to trash our own security to get into a particular range, being a more aggressive style of yellow deck. Then we do have Leopardmon as a single card update, but this is a really powerful single card update just because it's adding a lot of new depth and versatility to what the deck was already doing, having a new way to be able to continuously try to play out our green Digimon while also controlling the field at the same time. And then as far as some other really good generic tech cards, we do have a lot of purple and a lot of blue cards that could be splashed into other packages, like the Garurumon engine that can be used by a lot of different decks, which is one of the main contributing factors to why they were limited. Then we also have about half of the eggs that are more deck specific, and the other half are not, and the other half that aren't are actually pretty solid at being decent draw engines and a good way to try to DP boost your Digimon. Then Yellow Vaccines gets a lot to play with just because we have the Yellow-Green Leomon side of things, which is also Vaccines, and we also have the Mitamamon, so there's more different ways that you could approach the deck depending on what you're looking to play. And then Purple is just absolutely busted in this set, where it has a lot of access to a lot of really good cards that a lot of Purple decks can use, because Purple as a color is more mechanics driven rather than archetype or trait driven, so you have lots of easy ways to be able to splash whatever card you want in Purple into whatever deck, as long as it's fitting with the mechanics that you're trying to play around with. And then we also get a new X antibody option, which could be beneficial to certain X antibody decks that don't necessarily want the old X antibody and can't utilize the old X antibody efficiently. So when it comes to my overall thoughts on the set, I think that this is actually one of the strongest, if not the strongest, EX set we've ever had. It will have an impact on the meta overall, especially since some of the cards are good enough to warrant getting limited to begin with, or even choice banned. So there's just a lot of good cross synergies between what a lot of the colors our decks are doing to try to take advantage of, which I definitely think is good. So that way you have lots of different cards to think about utilizing. And then the new decks in the set also are looking really strong. The two highlight decks are obviously going to be Fanglong and Grace Nova as the two standout decks. Unfortunately, you do need their secrets in order to play those decks. And then, while I'm not exactly happy with the way promos are being distributed, because, they're going to be expensive and they shouldn't have done one card per pack, and they should have done at least 2 or more cards per pack, just so we have an easier way to be able to get these cards. But at least Box Toppers is one of the, in quotation marks, better ways of having promos be distributed, so that way if you're looking for those promos, you just need to try to always buy into the set in order to try to pull for those promos, creating some artificial chase. Then I do hope that they end up making these promos and some other promos a little bit more accessible, just because certain decks do need these cards, and it is unfortunate that based on what we've seen with BT14s, they're looking to be very expensive. But outside of that, I do think that the set is still going to sell relatively well, considering how strong the set is, and even though a couple of cards are getting hit, it doesn't necessarily devalue the entire set, just because of the new decks needing the secret rares, which is going to cause that chase, on top of the box topper promos, on top of just, some other good generically solid cards that the set has to offer. But in terms of if you should buy the set, well, if you like any of the decks or the cards inside of the set, then it's worth buying either the singles or investing in a couple of boxes to try to open up enough cards to be able to build whatever you want out of. And that's kind of the main takeaway with a lot of how Digimon works. Not every set is needed or in demand. EX sets more specifically aren't, but regardless, if you just want to have some fun, open up some packs, build a couple of these decks, then I definitely think that it's worth your time and investment in. Otherwise, if you don't really care about anything the set has to offer, offer, well, obviously skip it then. But I think that the set is going to be a really fun and strong set to play around with.